Call the meeting to order. First thing is approval of minutes December 3. Is there a motion to approve?
January 22nd?
I'm sorry, December 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Is it December or January?
January.
January 22nd, I'm willing to
22nd.
approve.
Huh.
That was the last
Yeah,
meeting.
as well.
That must be an oversight on the minute
yeah.
or the agenda
Yeah.
Oh
producer's
yeah, that must
part.
have not been updated.
Okay.
It must be our app.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, so that's January 22nd.
second.
January 22nd.
I'm fine.
remember we went to the meeting on freedom of information
Yeah.
on the Tuesday of that week?
Right.
So we
It was
changed
followed.
it.
Right, okay. So motion to approve those as
Second?
corrected. Correct date. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So next is additions to the agenda. I have two, the technical planning services agreement between the town and the Council of Governments. Second thing is Mohawk Trail Foot Race, Sunday, May 3. So, is there any other additions?
No,
Is there a second to adding those two?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Communications, are there any communications? Public comment? Yes?
I was just wondering whether the board, in planning for the budget, been reading in the paper that some of the adjoining towns have increased their budget line for recycling because of the additional costs. Are we increasing that line, and if so, by how much? And if we're not, why do you think we shouldn't, if all these other towns are doing that? My second one is agenda item number 2, where you talk about a contract extension for WMC. As a member of that committee, I was unaware that we had that contract, the town had a contract with Steve McDonald and WMC. I know that they were the winner of the original contract, and that they then got $10,000 beyond that, and that the $10,000 that I believe there was some confusion about on the vote was paid to WMC beyond that. But I would like an explanation of the contract, and I would also urge this board not to approve any additional monies until the committee is asked about what expenditures would be most helpful for them, because we've repeatedly talked about the hiring of someone for a second opinion, and we've always been told that there's no money for that. So I think that I would urge the board not to extend anything until you get at least a recommendation from the board that you've appointed to advise you. And third, I would ask this board, this newly constituted, to consider the rules that you have now, where you only have public comment at the beginning and the end, that would encourage citizen participation during the meeting, because it's a little hard to think of everything or to know what you're going to talk about and make a comment in the beginning. And if you can only make a comment at the end, then you don't really have an opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? So then, first thing on our agenda is Wendy Mcfarland appointment to Park and Rec. We got a letter from Wendy Mcfarland, who is active in town, and we've got an endorsement from Park and Rec for her to be appointed. So is there any, so I'll make a motion that we appoint her to Park and Rec.
I'll
Is there a
second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. let's see, next is WMC contract extension. I sent you a draft here, proposal from Steve McDonald. The, as a way of background, the WMC was selected by the committee to do the study for the wastewater septic committee. The town meeting did vote to endorse the program, the process, and the work of the committee, as well as give $10,000 last summer for the application to USDA. That has been done. The application has been submitted. The next step in this long process is to get us to a town meeting, which will require technical expertise. And so Todd and I met with Steve McDonald and we did talk about the next steps, and as the process has probably taken a little longer than we had thought it was going to take last year, I asked Steve to enumerate some of the issues, some of the work he's going to have to do in order to get us to that amount, to that point, which is a town meeting, as he's already expended the $10,000 to get us to the grant business and has attended meetings since that town meeting. So this is his proposal. And I would move that we would adopt his proposal. We have several meetings coming up this week. I know this is new to the board and obviously is an expenditure. There is some money left in this account that would cover this, so we do not need a budget transfer to do this. Because originally we thought the town was going to pay for the process, and we got a grant reimbursed. It was actually run through the town, so the original town appropriation did not get touched. So Barbara Herb said we do have money in the study account that would cover this amount. And again, this meeting in the summer would be for the whole project, would take us up through that point, and we would and this would cover our pretty much all the expenses that would have to be put in place.
So this would take us up to the
Up
proposed
through the
town
town meeting. I
voting?
mean, there's going to be a certain amount of work because the USDA is going to have questions.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to have to be a back and forth with USDA. Obviously, I can't answer those questions. I did meet with Steve's assistant, and Barbara worked with him on some of the financial information, but they may have some technical questions that will need staff to.
And we have submitted that now?
Yes,
That's been
the
submitted.
submit button has been pushed. Then there's also other things as far as looking as far as site evaluations. And again, we put the word out looking for some sites. And then there's also the need to evaluate different types of technologies and to prepare a budget for the town meeting, the Board of Finance. And then also I think there's a need for some documentation, some visuals and things for the general public to explain what's being proposed. And then a timeline is necessary to tell the town, keep the town informed as far as where the project's at and what are the next steps. So those are all things. I think this is a reasonable amount of money to get us to a place that I think the town wants to go, and that as far as making a decision on this one way or the other. And we'll need technical expertise, and there's no one more qualified than the person that has been working on this for, I think, 3 years to help us get to that point. And this would allow us to keep with a meeting schedule that would keep us on track. It's very easy for these programs, these projects to slip, month here, month there, and before you know, you've lost significant time. So that's, and again, we don't have to do it tonight, but I think we should do it so that Steve would be ready to be prepared to come to a meeting the end of
Before 2/18.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to sort of lose February. The application took a little longer than we wanted, and if we have a couple
And
more.
that's the next time we meet.
Yeah, so we have, I mean, jumping ahead, we do have a couple more meetings to do with the budget. If,
So we could deal with that within that time.
yeah,
Okay.
if we're meeting again Thursday night and Monday night, we could put it on that if those dates work. But I do think we should keep plugging away. I mean, our job is to try to get a proposal in front of the town and let the town decide.
Agreed. I just think it's an interesting lesson learned here of sort of like proposing a certain thing to the town with a certain cost and then introducing a secondary cost. I mean, I guess hindsight's 20/20, but I think it's a good lesson to learn, like, okay, so 10,000 for the initial work, and then there could be some work beyond that. That's my only sort of initial, I guess, opinion on it. I'm not saying I'm not for it. I'm just saying it's an interesting,
Learning curve.
it is. And I think it's something that should be noted, because, 10,000 versus 6,000 is not a huge difference.
Right, and we did get a grant that covered 45,000.
Yeah, I just think
of
from,
stuff.
we went to the town with this number, and so I think that's a sort of transparency that I'm for behind anything. And I think that the vote was overwhelmingly in favor. I just want to point that out, that for the future, I hope that with any type of vote, when there's a number, there might be a secondary number behind that.
Okay. Any thoughts, Priscilla?
Well, I know the sewer meeting that's supposed to have been on next Tuesday has been put off until Tuesday the 18th at
Yes.
5.
That's when
And-
we meet. Oh, well, but we could discuss this before that.
Well, we have a selectmen's meeting after that sewer meeting at 7:30. I just think that this should be put before the sewer committee.
Oh, I
That they
see what you
should we should be open about it. It's not something that we're doing. I certainly think we need to do it. I'm not against it. But I'd like to be as open with I've been on that committee for the 2.5 years it's been in existence. And I think everyone is moving towards something. And Steve has certainly been devoted to us and come to all our meetings. But this is like the second time there's been a new little bump up. That was a surprise. And that's my only point, to make it open to.
Right, but I think also it's important to keep the momentum going, because then he won't,
Yes.
if we don't pass this till after that meeting, then we're going to talk about, do we hire him, do we don't hire him? I mean, that just leaves
Yeah.
us in limbo, and I think it's such an obvious decision. But again, I'm putting that out there, it's a board decision, it's not my decision, and I'm willing to table it until we meet on Monday, the 10th, and that would give us a chance to
I'm in favor of tabling it right now. I need a little bit of time.
Okay, I'm
I'm
in favor.
Or table it to the 10th, or table it to the after
Well,
the meeting?
I don't know if it's possible to table it to the 10th and then make a decision. there's a part of me that feels like I should hear from the committee
Would there
in
be,
totality.
would it be a good idea to take this communication and send it out to the sewer board, the West Cornwall Sewer Board, and say, this has come to the selectmen's attention. We will be making a decision at a budget meeting we're holding on the 10th. We would like your input.
I don't know if we can do that
You
via
can't do that
email.
under FOI.
You can't
You'd
do
be doing
that.
business.
You couldn't, yeah, you couldn't get
Couldn't get it.
detailed feedback. You could maybe get a yes or no,
Oh,
Well, again, they'd be taking
but still,
action.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
Schedule
right.
a special meeting.
It would have to be a special,
So-
yeah.
I mean, to me, it seems pretty obvious the committee cannot proceed without his
Right,
expertise.
without his
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
that's the flip side. I just wish that this had come, I know hindsight's 20/20, but this would have been great to have seen at the last septic meeting. And I mean, that's where my hiccup is, because if he knew these expenditures were gonna happen, we could have seen that in January and then voted on it.
well, this was done in Jan, he wrote
But
this in
that was
January.
after
Yeah,
our septic meeting.
it was.
And again, I know everyone's doing their best, I'm not criticizing, but,
You could put it off until after the meeting. You get an advisory opinion from the commission on the 18th. In
But I
theory.
think that's all they're gonna do, because I don't think he's gonna be there. And if he doesn't get authorized to do work, then there's no site analysis, there's none of these steps go until.
for a month.
For a month.
For a month,
So we
right.
slip.
So my standpoint is, let's be transparent and embrace. I just feel like that's our biggest hiccup right now with this whole system. It's like there's a faction of people that don't think that there's transparency. And if we're in a position of leadership, we should be able to say, okay, you know what? Here's the transparency. Here's what's going on. We've given you all the information we can give you, and we're going to move forward, hopefully. That's the end. That's my gut instinct on this. I don't want to continue this idea that we're holding something back. And for me to feeling that we're pushing this through sends that message.
Okay, so is that a vote to table this until after the sewer meeting?
Yeah, I just feel like I feel like the outcome is going to be positive. I just would rather us give that opportunity, and I entrust that we're a town that has a very unified position on this. Speaking from the last vote.
Okay. So that's a motion then to table this until our meeting after the next sewer meeting. So is there a second?
So that would be on the 18th.
Or
And
I'm
that's
happy
one
to
of
do
the
a special
meetings that he
meeting.
is questioning that he's supposed to be at.
Right, that's the
That this
problem.
is supposed to cover. So I think we need to answer it before the 18th.
I'm
So
happy
not-
to do that.
I'm not seconding your motion for that reason.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's where we are. That's the problem.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, is there a way, this is complicated, but is there a way to pay for him to be at the 218 meeting?
Well,
What?
I don't, if all we're gonna talk about is that's not really his decision. He needs to be doing, work on the issues, which, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen
No,
this
I
month. So
wanna move
it's
it
either-
forward.
It's either gotta go or stop.
We could try a special meeting.
Well, I don't think it has to go or stop. I think there can be some sort of medium. Why does it have to be like either we say yes now or it stops?
Because he's expended his budget and his work authorization was to submit the proposal to USDA,
Which you did.
which he did. So he's not authorized and there's no budget approved to do any work beyond hitting the submit button.
Right.
And that's what this would cover.
Right.
So it's not,
It's a
It's
tough
not-
one. I
and he
kind
probably
of,
would do work,
no, I know.
but again,
He's-
it's like, he's put it out there, this is what he feels needs to happen.
Right,
It's
I'm
probably
just.
better if there's discomfort just to let it go for a while and then we'll just kick the meeting back.
No, I mean, I
if
just
that's-
think, like, I look at this, it's like attendance at 4 to 5 meetings. So that's one of his line items. So, like, this is his proposed budget. So if I were a vendor and someone came back to me and said, oh, listen, we'd like just to have your proposed budget for X, Y, and Z, they would come back to you with another proposal.
But it's also clear that the committee's not gonna engage his services, this board signs the contracts. So if we get that, we have a special meeting, we kick it to the committee, we're the ones that are supposed to hire people.
Right.
So again, if we go there and they say we don't wanna do 3 and 4, then what do we do?
But I feel like we haven't, I'm surprised that we haven't heard this from the septic committee. I had no idea following the septic committee that there were gonna be additional expenditures just for this. And maybe that's something that I missed in it, but,
No.
I don't think you missed it. I don't think anybody anticipated that there's gonna be extra work in evaluating the sites and all this other stuff, that would just be covered in the USDA stuff, but clearly it's not. So I don't think there's any fault, there's anything missed.
No,
It's
I
just
don't think there's
much
any
work.
fault. I'm just
There's
saying-
much work to be done. We're still evaluating sites. There's a bunch of things that have to be done, and that work to do the application was all that was budgeted.
right.
So it's just a question of process and time.
Right, so, I mean, again, I feel like we're in a little bit of a sticky situation calendar-wise. So I don't really know, I don't know what's the best practice to proceed. I agree with Priscilla, I don't want to wait until the 18th, but we have there's seemingly not a lot of choice.
3 years.
So
Get it back.
I can't hear you.
I don't think this is time for public.
Okay.
No, it's
I
not.
could try to
So-
set up,
Jonathan, I don't think you're
I have an
in
idea.
charge of
No, I know.
meetings. too.
No, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
I want to respect both sides. That's what I'm trying to walk that.
That's what I am trying
that
to do.
tight
too.
walk down the road. I feel reassured that you say you've spoken with Barbara and there are funds to cover this additional $6,000.
Right.
So it's not going to be, you
And
know,
we're really,
we
I mean,
can
if
do
people
it.
want to hear what the committee has to say about this, we're really talking 2 weeks, and that's
Yeah.
in the glacial pace of this project, that's not a significant amount of time.
And they can
However,
speak
I mean,
to it?
What?
They can speak
They
to
can
it?
speak to it, but I think it's pretty obvious that we need his expertise to get us to the vote.
Yes.
That you can't have another engineer
I
talk to
agree.
USDA now that he submitted it.
No.
No,
We're
no, I
not-
agree.
We're
I
not going
just-
back to square one.
I'm just saying I want there to be, there should be time for these sort of things to be introduced and if the committee speaks to it, we can listen to them and, okay. That's important to me, so.
Right.
Okay.
Just the understanding is, he probably won't be there doing a site analysis because he's not under any, we haven't worked this out yet. In
Okay,
order
but
to-
let's say we work it out. And
On
then
the
we hear
18th.
from the no, let's say we work it out sooner rather than later. And then the committee, they can't speak to it after we've
They
already
can
worked it.
speak, speak all they want, but
Okay.
it's not as important if we've already decided to continue with his services to get us to the town meeting.
Yeah, okay.
So we can put it out and see, I mean, one of the reasons I put it out here was knowing that we're meeting 2 more times in the next week, so that, again,
get it.
we're
Yeah.
not supposed to be brilliant on the spot. So again, I have no problem with putting it off till the 10th, and we can discuss it again as part of our meeting next Monday.
I'll take that as a first step.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay, all right.
Because that'll give me some time to think about
Sure.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. So anyway, we will table this until our meeting on the 10th. Okay. So I'll make a motion then to table item 2, until next Monday meeting. Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, free information meeting in Warren 2 weeks ago. A lot of us went there. Very interesting meeting. Went on for about 2 hours. Jonathan took copious notes and is ready to make a very brief presentation. It was interesting because some of us have been in those before, but I'm curious to see what impressions there were from people that hadn't seen Tom Hennick in action.
Well, it was a great presentation. It kind of laid out the day-to-day requirements of FOI. You need meetings and there's record keeping. The meetings need notice, and he went through all those requirements. It's 24 hours in advance, and there's a slight difference between a special meeting and a regular meeting as far as the agenda goes. In a special meeting, you can't add anything to the agenda, but in a regular meeting, you can. So it's a specificity difference. And the one thing I found the most interesting was the part of the regulation that's less black and white is when does a discussion outside of the meeting setting become a violation of the notice requirement. And they gave the example of an email chain going back and forth, and the commission's advice was you can disseminate information, but you can't discuss details. The discussion would have to be noticed in a meeting.
In the public.
In a meeting thing. And the other thing I took from it was if you can fulfill the request quickly, then do so. So not all requests will be physically possible to do right away, depending on the scope of the request, but if it's easy to fulfill, to do it without unnecessary delay, and also if you're going to withhold anything, a record that's been requested, to make sure that you have a basis in the statute to do so. And that was pretty much it.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah,
Thank
one,
you.
I think a couple things that came up that I think should be known, that if people do correspond on their personal computers and there is an FOI complaint, then if they have tried to set policy or have private meetings on their computers, those computers can then become part of the record. So it's very important that we have, as board members, one-way conversations, and if I'm constantly sending out from here information and you're sending back people's concerns, but we're not saying we're going to rebuild the bridge on Rattlesnake Road through email. We're doing the big lifting. As awkward as conversations can be from time to time, it's very important that they are done when the public has a chance to observe what's happening and a public record is made of those meetings. One thing that did come up at the meeting was the issue of public comment, public participation at the meeting, and Tom Hennick said he chaired a town board for a number of years, and he was not in favor or would not encourage boards having back and forth with members of the public in the audience. That these are meetings of town boards that can be viewed by the public, and people can, under the guidelines of the board, make comments at the beginning or at the end, or both, depending on how the agendas are set up. But he discouraged having give and take with audience members during these meetings. So that was his response to that idea. So, but again, it was great. There were people from other Cornwall boards there, good representation, and he is a very helpful person to have, because I think this is not only the law, but it also helps with making good decisions and having good record keeping and public access to those. So, Priscilla, do you have any thoughts on it? You were there, I think.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was impressed that there were so many Cornwallians there.
Yeah.
The school board, budget, Vera even came. It's not the first time she's been there. But I was impressed that the care that people take. And this Tom, I can't think of his last name, Kennett?
Hennick.
Yeah. He's done several of these. When I was first elected, they had one up in North Canaan that I went to. So this was my second time to go. And it meant a lot more this time because I understood a lot more
Right.
of what was going around, you know. So I think it's beneficial, and I think it's something that probably should be repeated at least every 2 years, if not annually, because you tend to forget, or you tend to get sloppy, and we don't want to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we do want to be open, and that's what this whole freedom of information, I think, is about.
Yeah, good. So, anything else on that? Next is town email. Any breakthroughs on that?
Yeah,
front?
so my recommendation is to use Cornwall selectman at optonline.com. John talked to our IT guy, and he had some concerns about using that email address because of a junk mail issue, which I don't think we're going to face, because we're going to be a completely subscriber-based email system. So we're not going to be in the position where someone says, oh, I didn't sign up for this, spam.
Right.
And the reason why I recommend that is because we're in a sort of unique position where we have a volunteer-run website. Then we have a tourism website. Then we have our selectmen and our finance and our clerk emails. So I really hesitate to buy another domain. I think that's confusing. I don't think it's user-friendly. I think we need to stay within what we have. And the Cornwall Website Committee has expressed that they'd like to keep their operations internal. Because I had asked if maybe we could use info@cornwallct.org, and they said no. You know, we're a self-run entity, which I respect. So I don't want to necessarily buy another domain. I mean, we could buy like townofcornwallct.org, but I mean, we should try to be as user-friendly as possible. So my suggestion, based on research and talking to people, is to use Cornwall Selectman at optonline.com, which we can go ahead, if approved, get that jump-started very soon. If we run into problems, and we can check in with our IT guy periodically, and if he says, listen, people are marking you as spam, or OptOnline says that to us, then we rethink it. But I feel like we should get this going. And I feel confident that because we're not going to subscribe people. So they're going to subscribe themselves. And so we won't, I don't think, run into this problem of like, what is this email? I'm going to mark it as junk.
Okay.
So if that's okay with you, we can start on the process as soon as tomorrow.
I like the things you sent up from Washington. I mean, I think it will be good to sort of look at a couple of different formats.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So yeah, my thought process was just like setting it up,
yeah.
not, and then we could even talk. I could come to you in 2 weeks or even sooner, whatever, with different formats,
Right.
and you could decide what you like.
Yeah, if you could, do you want to take that on and just look at 3 or 4 towns and tell us which ones you'd recommend?
Yeah, I could propose, exactly, I could do 3 or 4 towns, and you could say, this works, I like
Right.
this format. And once we have the building blocks there of
Right.
actually setting it up, we can change the format.
Be interesting to find out from those towns, how do they solicit people's input?
Yeah, so I can ask around.
Right.
I have some input already about how to even get people subscribing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking the Cornwall Groups network that exists. There's a Facebook page that exists. There's an Instagram that exists. And then there's the Chronicle. And I also thought that Jonathan could be a point person. If someone really didn't know how to sign up, we could just say, hey, call Jonathan at town hall. He'll grab your email address and he'll subscribe you. So then that really touches base with people that are familiar with this kind of platform and those that have no idea what to do. And we're opening it up to everyone and saying, no matter what your comfort level is, we have you covered.
Right, okay, so we'll put that,
So basically, I think next steps are creating the account.
all right?
If approved tonight, we'll create the account. We'll put a proposal together on how to ask people to subscribe. And then at the next meeting, I can have formats for you. And then if approved with how you like how we're gonna ask people to subscribe and the formats, then we can get going.
So again, you'd run it off the CWL selectman, so it wouldn't be a CWL town news or something.
Well, we could. I mean, I actually asked Jonathan to see what your package is.
Yeah.
So you probably have a variety of, you probably have an amount of email addresses you can
Right.
use.
Yeah,
So if the IT guy or Opt Online comes back to us and says, hey, you have 3 email addresses you could still use,
Right.
we could do an info or Cornwall CT info or Cornwall newsletter at optonline.com, which I think would work well. I just want to maintain some consistency with what we have already.
mm-hmm. What do you think, John? Make sense?
Yeah, no, that would, we could get in touch with the IT guy and see if there's any, I think it'd be good to make a new email.
Yeah, I think it's semantics at this point. Like, I feel like as long as we decide we're going to use our Opt Online account,
Yeah.
we can put together something that works well for everyone, that's like easy to remember and goes, you know, like it could be like all of the ways that the email addresses start with now are CWL.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do CWL newsletter, and that could register in people's brains as something that's associated with the existing email addresses.
Okay, so we'll keep that as an agenda item. Okay, hi Ted. Was I clear today that we're meeting on
Correct, I'm here about the mirror.
the mirror? Okay,
Gonna discuss the mirror letter.
yeah, a little bit,
I just found out about it, saw it posted, so
right,
it does have something to do with transfer.
Right.
station, so.
yeah. Okay, good. Do you have a copy of that letter?
I received it from Priscilla.
Okay,
My
good,
request, thank you.
okay. So, then the next thing on the agenda is the steep grants. There is phase 3 that we have the rest of the year to do, and that's for business or barn facades. So we're going to try to publicize that. It's out there, and again, it would be 80% of the first $10,000. There's enough money to do 5 or 6 grants, so it's first come, first serve. So people have a business that needs the front of the business, the roadside spruced up, or a barn that needs renovation. This could be energy improvements, new windows, paint, roof, but it has to be on a building. So we've had dozens of Cornwall businesses take advantage of it over the years. This is the 3rd round. We're the second part of the 3rd round. So it's a good program, but we need to get it finished by the end of this year. And they're about to release another round of the STEEP grants, which is Small Town Economic Assistance Program. But if you have an outstanding unfinished program, you can't apply for any new grants. So that's another incentive to get it wrapped up by the end of this calendar year.
And do you find that you need to publicize that?
Yeah, we'll
okay.
publicize it and put it out
Okay.
in our newsletter, among other places.
Yes.
We'll
Yes,
put it out.
that would be the
Exactly.
perfect place.
Right. But again, we'll,
I just didn't know if it was something that people like actively applied to, or. if
yeah,
you
no,
needed to-
people have been picking up applications, and the application is available on the Cornwall website right
Okay,
now.
cool, thank you.
Okay, next is the cost annual town meeting. That is in February. Forgot the date.
I don't have the date in front of me, no.
You have the date?
February something. It's a Friday, I think.
Is it?
21st or 28th, I think. right?
Might have it
Well-
written down over
I'll
at
look
the
it up.
desk.
So it's usually during the middle of the week. I think it's a Wednesday.
Oh, it's a Wednesday?
Yeah. So, but it's coming up, so we should, again, in the next week, figure out who's
Yeah,
able to go.
February 19th.
Okay,
What is it, the
The
19th?
19th.
the 19th, that would make it a Wednesday, I think?
You're
yeah.
right.
Okay. Okay, so it's very worthwhile. There's a bunch of state leaders there. There are businesses that work for municipalities doing vendor booths. Governor's gonna be there. Other legislators are gonna be there. It's expected to set attendance record. So, anybody in? Anybody interested?
I wish I could.
Okay,
I'd like to go.
okay, so.
Do I have to tell you right now?
No,
Okay.
but again, we should let me know
Can I tell
by,
you by end of this week?
yes,
Okay.
that's fine.
So I can try to take the day off.
Yeah, it's
Can we
good.
turn the fan up down so we can hear, please?
I think that's the heat. So, then, okay,
Thank you.
it's, okay, you should have received, the Houstonic Railroad Vegetation Management Program, for 2020. It's fairly similar to the vegetation management program that we got for 2018. And I did dig out somewhere, and I'll give you a copy of it if you want it. Our response to the 2018 program was, before they talked about more spray, what are they going to do about the dead vegetation on the side of the road? And again, we met in 2019 about that with very wide spectrum of authorities on the subject of spraying railroads, dead trees, causes of dead trees, but the trees are still there. So we don't have to respond to this right away, but I think we should respond to it soon. And again, I did talk to Representative Horn about this. She has been talking to DEP and DOT, trying to get answers as far as what their plans are for 2020, but there's no mention of cutting trees, other than it's more expensive than spraying. But there's no way to deal with dead trees on the side of the railroad, which we know from our meetings with the railroad can create problems for the railroad when they fall in the tracks. There's no other way to deal with dead trees other than cutting them. More spray will not make them better. So anyway, that will be an ongoing thing, but I will write some thoughts to our representative and senator to try to get, again, another meeting going ahead. What are we doing, folks? Any other thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think that's all we can do is just keep on it.
Right. So anyway, I will write. Right. Next is we have the letter from Mira. I'd like to be able to tell you what Mira stands for, but I'm not that.
Materials Innovation.
Okay, Materials Innovation
Recycling Authority.
Recycling Authority. And again, I gave you this as background. And we can discuss this again when we meet with Ted and talk about the budget for the transfer station, which we'll do in depth on Thursday. I'm going to try to get some cost projections from Mira as far as what they feel are going to be a good budget number for 2021 budgets. So I should have those by our meeting on Thursday. As much as they can tell, they're having problems because basically their plant in Hartford is wearing out, and there is further information available at a website, so I would suggest that we look at that. And their bottom line is they want to gauge municipal interest in continuation and redevelopment of the South Meadows projects. This is something we're talking about at the Council of Governments, as most of those towns, but not all towns, are part of MIRA. And the current price of, which is in the $90 range to get rid of garbage, could go up substantially under any scenario. But it sounds like right now when their plant is, so there's two things. One is the solid waste, the municipal solid waste garbage that goes in the packer, and that's about $90 a ton. Then there's recycling estimate. So they've hired this company to come up with a proposal to redo their incinerator, which incinerates the garbage. There is still about a third of the volume. Then is ash, which has to be disposed of, which has its own set of environmental issues, especially as they're running out of places to take the ash. So that's one proposal. But that proposal can be in two parts. One is to rebuild the plant, and the second thing is to replace the plant. So I would suggest that we look at their website before Thursday, and we can have some more talk on this. It's certainly a pressure point in the budget.
Yeah, I looked at it. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly. I couldn't find the proposed cost increases.
Okay, so here, do you have?
Are they in there
Do you have
already?
this?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I just met with Ted this
Oh,
morning on
okay.
the
Thank you.
transfer station, so I hadn't put those numbers in there. But currently this would occur on page 5 of the town budget, and we have a mirror, and line 202 is a mirror contract.
Oh,
We
okay.
increased the budget, last year's budget was 20,000, we increased that to 24,000. As of today, we've spent 11,900 on that amount. Now, there's gonna be, that's more or less a 6-month figure, because there's some lag in the billing. But we're in the ballpark, and that's, the good news is, that we are halfway through the year, and we're about halfway through our budget, so that's good.
Yeah.
And the other good news is, unlike some towns, you know, I mean, that's 24,000 is a lot of money, but it's not a huge amount of money. So if the tip fee went up to $130, which is the top end of what people talk about, $140, if it went up 50%, we would be talking about a $12,000 increase over a several year period.
Oh, I see.
So again, it's not gonna be as catastrophic as 20% increase of health insurance or something like that.
Right.
When we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Because they're saying tipping fees are not going to exceed 145.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's, you know, it's not great news, but it's not potentially catastrophic, especially if we keep on increasing things. Every year, we can get to that probably without a huge amount of upset. The only other thing what we need to be focused on too is the collapse of the recycling market, that we used to make money for recycling, and now we are not sure how much. I think they've been not charging us for recycling. Do you know, Ted, do we charge for that?
No, we're not.
We're not, but that may change depending on what happens.
That may change depending on how far they have to ship it as of right now.
Right.
Not sure yet. We used to get a rebate
Yep.
on how many tons we put out. They stopped doing that about 2 years ago.
Right.
So
And-
no longer get that rebate.
And they're, like everything else, is being blamed on the Chinese because they are not taking as much recycling as they did before with their
Correct.
China Sword project. But this has been addressed by the Council of Governments, and we've had several presentations. And there was a woman from, I think, DEP there last month. One presentation I heard, and they said they're actually, because China is not taking them, some of the American plants are beginning to reopen.
Correct.
I remember years ago that we used to ship a lot of paper down to Markham in New Jersey, and that apparently is about to reopen.
They're
So,
starting to reopen it, correct.
so again, as the economy keeps on going, it's an opportunity. So they were pretty confident that the recycling market, if not back to the days of making money, should at least get back to breaking even. So it's still pay, and again, not being charged is a lot better than being charged $90 a ton. So there's still a very strong incentive to recycle. One other thing they are pushing, and one thing we can think about, is this pay as you throw program. And it's an innovative idea that is fairly common in other parts of the country. Hasn't been widely adopted here, but the proposal is that most Connecticut towns average Connecticut resident throws away about 800 pounds of garbage every year. So, and that collectively winds up costing the town $24,000. There's some towns that sell garbage bags, and you can only bring your garbage to the transfer station in one of those designated garbage bags. So it puts an incentive, so it costs you $1.50 or something to buy a bag. So there's an incentive not to bring any more garbage and increase your recycling in your garbage. So what they've found is, like in Portland, Maine, they've done it, and they've dropped their garbage per person down to the 200 something pound range. So again, if the town took that on, if we did that, we'd be saving, instead of going up $36,000 to $36,000, we could be potentially going down to $10,000-12,000. Now, what's interesting, they've done enough data to track this around the country, and we're not under any obligation to do this other than the costs are going up for the town. And again, we would be one of the few towns in Connecticut that do this. I believe the town of Stonington does it quite successfully. So again, we wouldn't, it could be something we could explain and have townspeople vote at a town meeting. Do they want to do this? I mean, it's in everybody's interest to generate less garbage. One of the first questions was, do these towns see a increase in people just throwing garbage in the woods?
That was my question.
Yeah. So they said the cost isn't that significant that it's going to make somebody throw garbage, and that just the case history hasn't. There's like a a month adjustment period, and then you start seeing things happen fairly consistently. And again, if we didn't want to do it, if in Torrington adopted it and people didn't like it, so they voted it out. So they went from.
Oh, they did adopt it?
I think they adopted it.
And they voted out.
Didn't roll out well, and people said we'd rather pay more taxes than
Interesting.
buy the bags. We're one of the few towns that does not actually charge for a dump sticker. A lot of other towns charge $100 or $200 to do it. Other towns make you go to a vendor, which can cost you $500, $600 to get rid of your garbage every year. Just saying, it may be time to be thinking about these things, because if there's a town that might be able to pull this off, this might be the town to do it. Just a thought. So it's being pushed hard by DEP, and I think some of these other towns that have a huge garbage bill are going to seriously look at it, because again, if the price goes up, what do they say? You pay me now, pay me later. But if we can reduce it, and there's ways, I think talking to Ted, the biggest thing is there's some things we can do in our garbage, and maybe another direction is through composting. There's a lot of food waste and stuff that regionally maybe we can work on a program, but I think this is probably one of the areas that is going to increase in our budget over the next couple of years, and we should take some steps to do that. Would you agree? Is that what your thought, Ted? Was one of the biggest areas is just potentially compostable material?
Correct. I think we could reduce a lot of weight if we could institute some kind of program through cooperation with a couple of different towns.
Yeah.
They would want to come in and join up something, so that way we could make it marketable somehow.
Yep.
I think we'd see a huge difference. Right now, I see that's the biggest issue that Will and I have down there is the amount of food waste that is actually going in our MSW.
Yeah, I mean, I read all these stories about these companies that, because I would love to compost, but I don't want wildlife on my property.
Correct. Well,
And I think a lot of people feel that way, but we're all environmentally conscious. So if there's an alternative, that would be a cool thing to look through.
Right.
You know?
That's our problem that we're facing probably here the most.
Yeah, I would imagine. And I know there's some companies that come and, I mean, they're startups, and that's not necessarily the appropriate thing, but they go and they pick up your compost.
Correct.
And they dispose of it, I guess.
They are certified to be able to do that, they have special bunkers.
Right, exactly.
They have covers, they have biodegrade, what do they call them?
Digesters.
Yeah, regular digesters, there's another name too that they have for it, but that's what the company does.
Yeah.
But it's all state regulated.
It's kind of cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's something we will be continue to focus on, and maybe it's time to be a little innovative in our thinking and proposals. So, anyway, it's we'll continue. Anything else, Ted? We'll continue the conversation. I mean, the pressure's going to be on the town budget to try to think some alternative ways of handling our garbage. We're pretty lucky to have a pretty high recycling number right now. But we can work on some innovations to try to go farther, I think is where we'd like to go. And then we'll meet again 5 o'clock on Thursday. Good.
Yep.
Okay, any other thoughts on sanitation, MSW? And I'll get you those numbers that we worked on today, tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Speaking of the budget, we've got a special meeting, as we said just now, to talk about sanitation on Thursday at 5 o'clock. There's a Region 1 presentation on their budget at 7 o'clock, and what I'd like to do at that meeting between 5 and 7 is we'll go over all these other parts. We could do some more of that tonight if you want to go over those things. Did you see this before tonight? Right. So then what I can do is maybe just go and highlight a few things. We will, so
Yeah, I'm happy to review it prior to Thursday.
yeah, so I'll just tell you, I mean, we don't have to take any action tonight, but I will tell you a few things we just go over. What generally happens is all these town boards have given Barbara and us a explanation of these numbers. So these aren't just fill in the blank, but if there's something like you can see on the first line, the first thing, the assessor, she has dropped her computer amount from 7,000 to 3,000. So there'll be an explanation of significant changes in the budget in all those narratives. There is built into this a 3% pay increase for town workers, which amounts to, I think on the back, Barbara has a little thing that says how much a pay increase equals on page 6. So 1%, 2%, 3%. The union highway contract calls for a 3% increase for the 3 people in the highway union. And we can go over all this in detail. So, the selectman's salary include your folks' salary and my salary. The clerk is Jonathan's. We have a temporary clerk for when he goes on vacation. Well, he'll get less vacation than Joyce did. So that might be something that we just have these as draft things, and we can go through these line by line and make sure they all make sense. There's no bad questions if you don't understand things.
And I'll get Barbara my Hammond Beach numbers.
Right, we definitely.
Clearly I haven't done that.
Yeah, there's a whole
But
layer.
it won't be very different from last year.
Right, so that would be good if you could.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Right. Okay. I went over with Jim the highway numbers. And again, you can see the highway numbers are down slightly, 0.03%. And that is mostly because not only was Jim frugal in his budgeting, but we also are hiring a new employee who will not be at the top end of the pay scale. Insurance and benefits. On page 2, you can see there's an 8% increase for proposed for employee health insurance. Employee health insurance is the largest line of all the insurances, but that number actually went down even with an 8% increase due to the marital status of the pool. It's changed slightly. Land use stays the same. We've gotten on page 3 some reports or some requests back. We got the 2 big organization requests back from Child Center and the library, who are asking about the same as last year. There was a second letter from the library which I've got to read. Park and Rec has a slight expansion of programs. Got to fill in the blanks with Heather this week. And again, I would like, at some point, I'll see whether she can attend one of these meetings, just because we haven't gone over social services for this board, have we?
Mm-mm.
So we should have a meeting with her where she can tell you about the caseload.
Yeah, I'm happy to look over this
Yeah.
before Thursday.
Then we got some numbers from the fire department, seeing a few increases there. Got to fill in the blanks from the registrars. And again, that's about it. So anyway, we'll talk in more detail. Our goal is to have it finished by next Monday. It's a draft, and again, we won't get everything, but we'll get almost everything there. And if new information comes up, like we hear there's problems with the recycling markets or something, we can still adjust. The main thing is to give the Board of Finance at our presentation in, I think it's on maybe February 19th, a ballpark of, are we seeing huge increases or not?
February 20th, probably.
February 20th? Right.
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. Right. So that's our, and then again, we try to get it to them ahead of that so they can see what we're up to.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the budget. 2 meetings coming up. Next is tax refunds. You got those, Jonathan? Yep.
Oh, and Monday we can meet at 5:30?
Do you want to meet at 5 or 5:30?
I can't meet at 5. I had
Okay.
emailed Jonathan today.
Okay, so,
I could meet 5 on Thursday, but I have to do 5:30 on Monday.
okay,
Just FYI.
right, so we'll meet with the fire department
Thank you.
5:30 Thursday.
I gotta
Okay.
commute.
Got it.
So this is on Monday the 10th.
Yeah, it was originally at 5, and
5:30.
I can do 5:30 if that's okay.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, here's our tax refunds. We've got quite a variety. One is for $11.69. Second for VW leasing is $172. There's a $10 overpayment real estate tax. And then, as sometimes happens, there is a bigger one somewhere here. It's $13.36. There is one here. That's the floor. There's the VW. Yeah, there's one here for $1,200 because the homeowner paid the tax bill and the bank also paid the tax bill.
Okay.
So it was a double payment. So I would make a motion that we approve these tax refunds as suggested by tax collector.
Second.
Okay, additions. We had two. One is the technical services agreement between the town and the council of governments, where they provide us with town planning services and the planning and zoning people have met with Janelle Mullen, who is a planner at the Council of Governments, and we are going to contract with the COG for their services. There's several changes to the planning and zoning rules that they are contemplating, and there's a long list of things they want to get going with on as far as the town plan. We do have money budgeted under capital items for this consulting services. This is a continuation of the work that Jocelyn Eyre did in crafting the town plan, and it is a replacement for Tom McGowan, who recently retired after 44 years. I think it's 44 years as planner for the town of Cornwall. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think, is excited about getting going on a lot of these necessary changes. So I would make, so I need authorization to sign this agreement.
I think it's great. Do you need a second or motion?
I need a motion to authorize me to sign this.
I move to sign the NHCOG Technical Planning Services Agreement.
Second.
Second. Yes. So I think the other thing is that this also gives the town the benefit of the regional knowledge of some of these things, and the price of these services is very modest, and again, very important that we get necessary changes made.
It seems like very in line with the P&Z plan and
Right, it's a continuation of a good process. So any more discussion?
no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, I got a letter from a person who organizes trail races, mostly in northwest Connecticut. He's organizing a trail race on the Mohawk Trail on May 3rd. Starting at Houstonic High School and then running up the Mohawk Trail and winding up at Route 43. Turning around at Route 43 and running back down, I guess. So I wish them well with that. I won't be participating. And this is on the Mohawk Trail, which used to be the Appalachian Trail going through Cornwall. And Brian Vander Heiden got a endorsement, which I think I sent you from Connie Maines from Kent, who's
Yes.
well-known and has participated and vouched for his character and his program, but I just think it's again, one of the things that would be great to get people using our beautiful trail systems and enjoying our town more, and this is just another, I think, healthy activity that we should encourage. So
I think it's great.
yeah, so anyway, I will, with your permission, write Mr. Vander Heiden back and tell him he has our permission to do it. He is listing the property owners and the town of Cornwall as additional insured, and I also asked him provide for some emergency care on the trail or whatever, so that this doesn't turn out to be a big problem, and anticipate, the health and welfare of the runners, as it's steep. You're going up about 800 feet in elevation by the time you get to the top from Housatonic High School, and you run back down. So anyway, any other thoughts on that?
I think it's great.
May
Okay.
3rd. Sounds like a good deal.
Good deal. Okay. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So next is public comment.
Yes,
Oh, yes.
I'm very glad to see the board moving towards more transparency. With that in mind, I was wondering about the possibility of putting the draft budget online so that if people watch the video of the budget meetings, they'll have some way to see what's going on. I think you might find it very interesting if you guys were to watch the tape. You never mention a single number as you go through things. You have no idea what the contract amounts are. Even the last one where you commented, Selectman Kochebe, that you thought it was a reasonable amount. Well, as a listener sitting here, you have no idea what those amounts are. And it just seems strange that, the whole meeting goes on and you purposely avoid sharing any of the specific information with us. So I hope you can commit yourselves to changing that in the future. I know my questioning of the townwide vote and what people understood they were voting for. Our first selectman characterized my question as confusion that existed only in my head, which personally I found very rude. But I think it was definitely unclear to people voting that $10,000 was simply a payment for what was obviously an earlier part of a contract that you had in mind, Mr. Selectman, because this is the third bump up. There was the first $10,000, and then there was the vote where I think people thought they were looking at options and the kinds of things you're now describing as you need more money for was what that $10,000 was for. But as you yourself, when I brought it up at the separate committee meeting last time, when I asked what the $10,000 went for, you said to WMC to prepare the USDA grant, which I think most of us thought had already been paid for previously. For Steve to come and sit at our meetings many nights saying nothing, I think is something the board shouldn't be, our West Cornwall Septic Committee shouldn't be particularly proud of. But I do think that the committee has been misled. If you say Barbara Hurst says there's money, when we asked about any money being available for a second opinion, you now say, well, we can't bring in another engineer to review or to answer questions about the USDA grant. All we asked for was a possibility of a second opinion. From the very beginning, you've said there was no money, but there seems to always be money for WMC. And I think the committee is being used as a front. And if we have no decision-making, well, then you might as well just make all the decisions. And I think it's embarrassing to the committee. It's trying to do a good job, and you're depriving that committee of the information they need to make a reasonable decision. And finally, I see that Tom Hennick and FOI is providing a nice cover for keeping questions to the beginning and the end, or comments to the beginning and end of meetings. But I'd like to know, where do you think people or citizens can get an answer? If we bring something up, you just sit there and then our questions dissolve into thin air. We don't get any answers. I'd like to know how a citizen can get a specific answer to something that they raise at a meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Ruth.
Have you given any consideration to this memorandum of understanding that Mira is looking for?
Haven't gotten that far yet.
Just
So.
Curious. Salisbury signed it last night.
Did they? Yeah.
Yeah. So you're committing yourself for 30 years, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have not.
We haven't gotten that far,
Okay.
but we'll have to make a decision by February 28th.
And what if you decide no?
Good question. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any other vehicles. I mean, I think Kent is part of HRRA.
We're part of age.
Right, so there are a few other places, but most towns around here are part of MIR.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so next is bill payment.
That's it, right?
That's it.
Okay.
Why do I have two of these?